Morning, guys. 29th of December here in Central Illinois. We're going to spend another glorious day in the service of the Empire. But I thought I'd do a little bit more on O gauge and some of the things that I've always found rather irritating, along with Lionel and American Flyer. I think the biggest mistake, or I won't say it was the biggest mistake, but I think a mistake that Lionel made back in the day was never putting an operating coupler on their steam locomotives other than the switchers. If you had electrics, of course, you had the couplers on both ends. But what it denied you doing was double-heading steam, and I don't think there is anything more cool than double-heading steam. Or let's say, for instance, you had three of these switchers. Well, you could have one pulling, you could have one mid-train, which we've seen, and you could have a pusher. And I think Lionel missed out on an opportunity to make an imaginary world even richer by not putting the couplers on the front. In fact, I don't know. I think maybe American Flyer did one or two couplers on the front of their steam engines. I'm pretty sure they did. And I know kids went ahead and they changed them. But what I got here is I've got two switchers. I got an 040 and I got the 060. They're not even the semi-scale. They're just the well, that's a 203. Yeah, it's a 203 right there, and the other one is 1662. But I like to double head these from time to time. And what I do when I'm double heading is I put the engines on the track, both of them. And I turn on the power and I see which one runs the fastest. So the 040 runs the fastest. This will stay right up with it. So I would rather pull as to be pushed. That way we don't have any derailments. And I think this would actually work well if I used the 040 as the lead engine and were to put this on the very back of the caboose and use it as a pusher. I think I could get by with it without any problem. So it's fun to hook up a great big string of cars. This for me is a work train. I like work trains. So I think what we're doing is we're going to a washout somewhere along the line. We definitely have got a smaller crane, and we got a big crane to do the really heavy work if it needs to be. And speaking of heavy, that big crane, that thing pulls hard. There's a lot of weight to that thing. But this is a nice little outfit. These switchers are absolutely cool. The other thing that has always griped me with American Flyer is that they did the one-way couplers, male female. I don't have much American Flyer. I got more of it in O gauge than I've got in standard gauge, but American Flyer always seemed to me to be two steps behind the curve, at least with Lionel, even from the early standard gauge and even the early O gauge. When they changed coupler designs, they accommodated the customer with your combo coupler and then later your hooded coupler so that you could pull cars that were made 10 or 15 years ago with the cars that were made newer. That wasn't the case with American Flyer. You had these things in standard gauge. The 3/16ths over there are those drop couplers, those die-cast couplers that they used on S gauge. And then you had regular hook couplers for O gauge. And then you had, for a while, they were what they called them curly cues. They looked like knuckle couplers. So it was a hodgepodge of couplers. And believe it or not, this gondola was the first thing I bought in American Flyer. And knowing nothing of it about the time, it's nowhere near original. The side frames were painted black, and there was no brake wheel. But I wanted an American Flyer standard gauge, and it was a number of years before I ever got a locomotive for it. This is the one that I really like, though. This is I think you call it the Rolls-Royce Blue. That is a lovely color. I love that boxcar. The other thing that I picked up was the orange gondola. You see those once in a while. They had color variations. Nothing here is spectacular. It's all good. The poorest piece, of course, would be that gondola. And someday I may spend the money and get a real an original gondola, and I'll use those trucks for some of my projects, because I like American Flyer flex trucks because they're big. Those side frames make for excellent standard gauge motors if you want to convert from O to standard. The other thing that I want to do one of these days, and I've talked about this ad nauseum, but this is a 384 that somebody converted to an 060 switcher. And I want to tell you something. The machine work on this, the power unit on this is unbelievable. It is an absolute hog when it comes to working. And what I don't understand, what I don't know how they did, is the fact that all these wheels are geared and all these wheels are flanged, and yet this thing will negotiate a 41 or a 42-inch circle with no problem. So I don't know how they did that. I've got some other stuff that doesn't have that many wheels, and it won't negotiate that. But this is a hell of an outfit. But what I want to do to the front, the only thing I think it's lacking is I think it needs to have some steps added to it, just like that, which I can do. There's a place up underneath there, right behind the front, that I could set a set of steps up and keep the coupler, which was busted off. It just screws in there, but I could put that on there, and it would make it more complete. I think it would actually add to it. And then I'd love to take and build a complete work train, basically from scratch or kit bashing or something like that. Just something a little bit different, something to think about, which I'll never get done. But all right, we're just going to run these here for a second. Going to run these O-gauge switchers, which I think are just absolutely cool. And then we'll just run some of the American Flyer. The only other American Flyer, I've got a few passenger trains over there, and I've got the cast iron steam locomotive, which I really like. I never bothered with the die cast. Sometimes you have problems with that, but one thing about it, the only problem you'll have with that cast iron one is if you drop it on your foot, and you will know it. So let's go ahead. Let's get these rascals wound up and see what we can do with them. Let's start out with those switchers. They do a lovely job. And once again, I got a headlight that's burned out in the front switcher. I tell you what, I could spend my whole life changing headlights on these things. Well, that's pretty much it. Does a pretty good job. Tell you what, that Flyer electric, it runs real well, but I can't decide if that's got a McCoy engine in it or it's just a McCoy pickup plate, because it says McCoy on the bottom. So it may be a reproduction Flyer motor. But that's what we're up to today, guys. I've got some projects I got some projects that I'll show you later on, but I've had a lot of projects and they're still projects, but I will just give you a quick shot, and that's all I'll say about that. But this dump car, I have got power trucks for this. I'm planning on powering this and putting cabs on both ends. I've got a number of pictures of interurban maintenance locomotive cars, both of them in side dump and with bottom dumps like hoppers. And since I've got the power unit, it will be easy enough to power it. Whether or not I can do a nice enough job of either creating cabs on both ends or kit bashing an electric and putting the cab on both ends remains to be seen. But I think it will be an interesting project, and it will be rather unique if I can get it done and have success at it. So that's where we're at, guys. Have a good Sunday. I've got 9 more days of Christmas trees left ahead of me, and then I have to bring them down. I really hate to see Christmas pass. This is my favorite time of the year. So everybody be safe. Have a good time. Don't drink too much barley pop on New Year's Eve, and hopefully we'll talk with you later. Toodaloo.